Hi, this is Tony at Alika Analytics. This is screencast number 2. We're going to do a primer on using Git to do collaboration on a project. For this tutorial, there's a blog entry on our website, Team Collaboration with Git. And we're basically going to cover 3 workflows here. We're going to use Git to start your own project, do some work on it on your local machine, and then share it onto GitHub so that other people could start to collaborate on it. Call that your project. The other workflows are their project and our project. In the their project workflow, someone else has shared something onto GitHub, and you want to clone it and start to collaborate on it with them. And then the last one is you've got an ongoing project where you and others are collaborating through a project that's shared on GitHub. We call that the our project. So it's your project, their project, and our project are the 3 workflows we'll cover. I've tried to keep the tools that you'll need for this tutorial pretty simple. So what I've done is you'll need the File Explorer that's native to your operating system. That's Explorer on Windows and Finder on Mac. You'll want to download Atom from GitHub. It's a simple text editor with a Git integration. You'll want the Github Desktop. It's a GUI interface that allows you to clone and push and pull, interact with the GitHub repositories. And then you'll want to create an account on GitHub as well. And the links are here for each of those. And then once you have those all installed and you have an account created, then you're ready to do the rest of the tutorial. Okay, so we're going to start with the 3 workflows. First one is we're going to do the your project. You're going to create a project on your machine, put it under version control using Git, then you're going to share it to the cloud and tell somebody where to get it from. Okay, so let's start with that. So what we're going to do is we'll start with our File Explorer, and we'll just create a directory to work in, like you probably would in a normal project. We'll call it My Project, and there's our directory. It has nothing in it yet, as you can see. And we're going to now start to create some files, and at that point you could use any file, any tool, like you could use Word or Excel or something like that. In our case, we're going to use a file editor, just a text editor, and create a basic website. So I drag the folder into Atom, and I start to make some files. Okay, so first new file, since it'll be a website, we'll make an index.html, and there's our basic index.html. We'll add a README file to it, okay, because most projects should have some sort of README file. In this case, we're going to use a markup language. We'll put a heading in that markup language and call it our first Git project. And now at this point, we have our little project. And we would like to share it with somebody. Well, we'd actually first like to put it under version control so Git knows about it. Okay, so let's do that. To put it under version control, we'll notice in Atom that there's a corner here that's usually used for the tool. So let's maximize Atom first here. Okay, that's used for showing stuff having to do with GitHub or with Git. But in our case, we'll go up to Packages here, go to the GitHub tab, and create it. Now it shows that there is no GitHub repository that's been associated with this folder. That means that none of the files in the folder are being tracked. We have no history for the things. We can't share this via GitHub. So we'll create a repository. There's the directory. We initialize it. And Git basically creates a directory within the folder, which is a database for all the information it's going to use to track Git-related things about this folder. Now, we haven't made any updates. There are no files in our Git repository. There are these files in our folder, but Git doesn't know about them. So we have to make a change to our library or our Git repository. So what we do is we pick the files that we want to include in that change, and we stage this change. So now all of these files, this is the change we're considering making to their repository. It hasn't been made yet until we do a commit. And every time we make a commit, we should add some sort of comment. So this is our first commit. Okay, and Okay, now the repository Git knows about those files, and if I were to restart Atom, let's just move it. Pretend we haven't even used this project before. Close all the tabs. Drag our folder back in. See, those are the files there. Drag it back in. Boom. We go up. And let's make one a change to these files. So we'll go add a title to the website. Notice now this is orange. That's because the Git can tell that this file that we're working on now is different than the one it has in the library. We could discard that change. We did, and we were able to discard it. It rolled it back to what Git knew is in its library. Let's put the change back in. And let's decide to apply this change to the Git repository. So we've staged the change now. This is the set of files that if we decide to make a commit will be added to the repository. The changes will be added to the repository. So we'll go, this is our second commit. And presto, we've made a second commit. Now we're at a point where we have this project. We've made a couple of commits. We have a local version of the project, a local version of our Git repository on our machine, and we want to share the project with someone else. Okay, to share this project on GitHub, we're going to use the Github Desktop tool. So let's start the Github Desktop tool. There it is. And you can see on this starter screen here, there are basically three choices. We can create a new project and publish it. The project's already created, so we don't want that one. We can add an existing project on your computer and publish it to GitHub. That looks like the one we want. So here's our GitHub Desktop, and here's our File Explorer. Now, we could, the easy way for us to do it right now is just to take the project folder and drop it onto GitHub Desktop. It's telling us the local path to add a repository, and we click Add Repository. And now, right now, the GitHub Desktop knows about it, but we haven't published it. It shows the two commits we've made. There's no files currently in a uncommitted state that have been changed. So here we do is we click on this button here, Publish Repository. And this is the name the project's going to have in GitHub, and this is the description: our first shared GitHub project. So that's what it's going to look like. Now let's go over here onto GitHub and look at my account here. And these are all the repositories that I have in my account right at the moment. And you see there's no project, there's no repository called My Project. So if we do this successfully, after we publish it, there'll be a new project here. So let's go back over the desktop and let's publish the repository. It says it's publishing, look, and good. Looks like did it. So let's go over here, refresh this page. And look, we have our project on GitHub. Bang, successful. And if you want now somebody else to work on it, you'd take this URL and you'd send it to somebody. And send it to email or whatever, and then they could start working on it. And we're going to cover that now. We'll pretend to be the person who's going to work on it. I've removed all the project code from my computer, and I'm going to pretend now that I'm somebody who's seen a project on GitHub and I want to start to work on it. So somebody sent me this URL and I go, okay, great, this is the project I want to start to collaborate on. So I go over here and I want to find out the URL in order to work on it. I'm going to clone the project onto my machine, and I'm going to copy this HTTPS URL onto the machine. So I have a copy of that on my clipboard. In order to get the project on my machine, I'm going to use the GitHub Desktop. So there we go. There's the GitHub Desktop, and I'm going to clone a repository. It's going to ask me for the URL there. and it's going to ask me where to put it on my machine. So in this case, it's putting it in a directory in my documents folder, and it's calling it my project, and this is the URL. So let's clone it. It's fetching it, and it looks like it just got it. So now if I click on this thing, let's right mouse click on it, and I can open it in Atom. So, or I can show it in a Finder. So there it is. It opened my Finder. There it is in the Finder. Okay, and I can close the. Well, I won't close this right now. Yeah, I closed it. Okay, now I'm going to open Atom, just like I did in one of the previous scenarios. I'll minimize this so I can share the desktop with my folder, and I'll right mouse click this and drop it in. And there I have it. I have the project that somebody else did on GitHub, and it's on my machine. So now that I'm sharing a project, or I'm collaborating on a project that's on GitHub, there's really two scenarios. There's a case where I make a change and I want to publish it or push it to GitHub so that I can share it with others. And there's a case where somebody else has made a change, they pushed it to GitHub, and my job now is to pull it onto my machine so I can work on it. So let's do the first case where I make a change and I push it to GitHub. So let's just pretend I'm making a change here on this little file. This is a change. Save it. Open up my. I notice this thing is orange over here because there's a change that actually is on my machine that Git doesn't know about. I open up the GitHub tab. Let's open this up full. And would I like to apply this change to my local repository? And yes, I would. So I put a description to this. I'm going to actually commit it to my local repository. Not just made the change, I have decided to commit it to my local repository. So add paragraph to page. So there's my comment. I always make a comment that describes the change you're applying. So I've applied that change to my local repository, but now I still haven't shared it with anybody. It's still on my machine and I have to push it to GitHub. So the next step is to push it to GitHub. Okay, here I am in Atom, and if you look down here at the Git portion of Atom, it shows a 1 here beside this up arrow. That means that there's some change that I could push to GitHub. Okay, I could do the push here. My credentials for GitHub haven't been entered here, so that's a little inconvenient, but I could do it here. Or I could go over to my Github Desktop tool, which I'm going to do, and it also shows that there's one change that was made 2 minutes ago and that I can push up to GitHub. If I didn't already have it in my GitHub tool, I could go File, Add Local Repository, navigate to wherever that repository is on my machine, and then I would see this view here. So let's push it up to GitHub. So I click on the push button. It's pushing up to GitHub, and it's done. And I've now just shared it onto GitHub. If I go over here to my GitHub account, there were 2 commits. Let's refresh this page. And now it shows there's 3 commits. So success. And it shows with their added paragraph to the page. So I've cloned a project from GitHub. I've made a change to it. I pushed my change up to GitHub. Now what I want to simulate is somebody else having made a change on the shared GitHub project, and I have to pull that change down. So actually, while we were away, I made a change on the project, but it's not on my local machine. So let's go over to our GitHub Desktop and fetch the latest stuff from GitHub. And there's a down arrow, and it shows that there's been a change made while I was away. So I'm going to click on it, pulling it from origin, and I've just pulled the change. Now let's go over to Atom here and look at that. Someone else made this change. This project was changed. And so I've just done a pull. And that's all of the things. Hope that was helpful. Bye. Okay, now we want to clean up our demonstration project. We just go to the URL on GitHub for the project, click on the settings, navigate to the bottom of the page, click delete this repository, type in my project, and agree. that's the end of our primer for using Git to do team collaboration. Thanks.